So thank you everybody who is joining us today again to our monthly webinar that is always happening on Wednesday. We are super happy to have you here today. We have a very special session prepared for you guys with four presenters. So I really hope you guys are going to be enjoying it. My name is Michelle Cohen, and I have been the office manager for UXPA since 2025. I'm excited to host today's session. And before we get started, I just wanted to take a minute just to share a little bit about the UXPA, especially to folks who maybe are new to our community, maybe joining us for the first time. So UXPA International is a global nonprofit organization that has been supporting the UX community for over 30 years by now. And really, the goal is to bring together professionals from across the UX field who are all focusing on improving how people experience products and services. At its core, UXPA is about advancing the practice of UX and supporting the people doing the work. And that means that we are creating opportunities for you guys to learn, to share knowledge, and really connect with each other across industries and experience levels. We do this in a number of ways, including the webinar that you guys are part of today. We also have short courses, we have mentorship programs, publications, local chapters around the world, and of course, our annual conference that is coming up in June of this year. And one thing that really defines UXPA is that that it is a volunteer-driven. So the community shapes what we do, which is why it continues to evolve with the field. And we're so thankful for the volunteers to raise their hands and really help us in different capacity to make this happen. Okay. And for today, we're going to have the four presenters. I'm going to be introducing Matt momentarily. But before I start, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you have any questions for any of our presenters during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A section. And once they're done with the presentation, we'll go ahead and we'll answer all these questions. So our first speaker for today is going to be Matt Belge of Vision and Logic. And Matt took a winding path actually to UX, an early career as an electrical engineering, and then he was a student in Massachusetts College of Art. Then he really began making installation art, and his artwork has been shown at Ars Electronica in Austria, MIT's Center for Advanced Visual Studies, and First Night Boston's. At about the same time, he began a UX career, spending more than 30 years with leading companies in both research and design. And today he will talk about Let the Mind Wander, a UX designer as a Flaneur. Please welcome Matt. Take it away.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Michaela. Let me start by sharing my screen. Thank you again, Michaela, for this, and welcome everyone to our talk, Letting the Mind Wander, the UX Designer as Flaneur. Today, you're going to be hearing from four of us. Myself, I'll be talking about the UX Designer as Flaneur. Vanita Verma will be talking about philosophy as a creative catalyst. Sasha Olnick will be talking about embracing ambiguity. And Michelle Albert will be talking about creating space for the wandering mind. Now, you might be wondering, why is this an important stuff to be talking about? Well, the creative process is one that we are all deeply involved with. We're deeply dependent upon it to produce the kinds of work that our organizations expect from us. But more importantly, to bring us joy. Yes, joy. We initially engaged in UX work because it gives us joy. But in this modern era of deadlines and conflicting needs and personal agendas, it can be hard to find that joy. This talk is meant to help you bring back that joy and to re-find it for yourself. When we started working together, the four of us, Michelle, Sasha, and myself, we would often meet together as a UX team. We were part of a small UX group, and we would get together to solve fairly complex UX problems. But when we did so, we often started out our meetings chatting about other things, including literally philosophy and poetry and mundane stuff like what we did last weekend. And we found that this helped create a relaxed environment. Our minds were a little more engaged, we were a little more stimulated. And veering off like this, letting our minds wander, often set the stage for us to have a much more creative and engaging conversation as we delved into the meat of the technical problems that we were trying to solve. And we believe that this technique of letting your mind wander and using interesting but diverging topics can be applied in many situations and will help us all be more creative in our work. Now, when I talk about this, when people think about UX designers getting together, some of them, I think about an image like this. And this is not what I'm talking about. This image makes my blood pressure go up. I feel like I'm performing in this group rather than engaging in a real conversation. I think you'll notice they're all wearing these beautiful designer outfits. And of course, all of us have these $300 Mont Blanc pens, don't you? No, no, this is the wrong feeling. This is the kind of feeling that I'm talking about. These two people are engaged, but they're relaxed. And those are the key words, engaged and relaxed. They're relating to each other as humans. It's warm. They're open to ideas, but they're not rigidly performing like we are often made to do in large team meetings. Now, as one example, our group was trying to solve a problem, a big, deep, technical, complex problem about what would happen if the cloud goes down. Now, the product that we were working on is a single sign-on technology. What it does is it allows particularly healthcare workers access to many different healthcare records with a single gesture. Boom, you're in. But it was supported by the cloud, and the big issue was what would happen if the cloud went down. This was a big concern to our customers because life and death decisions are often made accessing these systems. And the cloud itself was beyond our control. People had been working for months on this problem. So we got together with some technical team members, some product managers, and we used this method that I've been talking about. We started out just chatting, bringing up some fun and engaging topics. We talked a little bit about philosophy. We talked about, believe it or not, virtual ping pong, because people had just started doing that. And then when we turn to the topic at hand, that is, what happens when the cloud goes down, we found that our minds were a lot more open and engaged and easy to talk about. And in a very short order, we came to some really good solutions. We didn't solve the whole thing, but we solved enough that we felt like we could really proceed. And the solution was one that made the technical people and the product managers and the UX team happy. And so we want to say that this really works. Now, all of this reminds me of the concept of the flaneur. A flaneur is a person. It stems from 19th century French philosophy, and it has to do with a person who roams city streets open to whatever might happen with no particular agenda, just enjoying themselves and taking it all in. The flaneur philosophy emerged as a rebellion. Flaneurs were rebels. They were rebelling against what they felt was a cold and industrial society at the dawn of the industrial era. And I think this is something that we can all relate to today in this uncaring world of AI and GPT and deadlines that seem to never end. And I think that engaging with a flaneur mindset will help bring us back to that joy that we talked about. Edmund White wrote a wonderful book called The Flaneur. And in that book, he describes wandering the city of Paris and what it's like to just have this open-minded mindset that just engages and is open to whatever might happen. He draws deep cultural inferences from these observances. For example, he talks about if a Jewish person were to walk down the Rue de Rosiers in the Marais district of Paris. Now, that district was once the old Jewish quarter, and a person of Jewish heritage walking through that district with their minds open will be presented with a flood of reminders from their childhood and their heritage, and it will invoke a deep and warm feeling for them. This is the kind of experience that Edmund White hopes and that I hope that you find as well. Now, to me, the Flaneur connects very well with UX designers and researchers. We are at our best when we are observing users, whether they're in their homes or in their work environments, watching them doing whatever it is that they do to accomplish the tasks that we care about. And if we approach these observances with a flaneur mindset, where we're just sort of letting it all come in, we're not filtering it, we don't have an agenda, certain things will come up that we didn't expect. And if we are open to them, they'll stay in our brain. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I think many of us had. A couple months later, you're trying to make some kind of design decision. And when you're doing that, suddenly something that happened in one of these sessions with your users comes forward and helps you make a better decision, helps you make a more creative decision. This is why I think the Flaneur mindset is one that's beneficial to us because it allows us to bring back the important stuff when we need it. We need mind wandering for our creative souls. We propose that adopting a flaneur mindset will actually help us to do a better job and to do one that we enjoy at the same time. We would propose that you become a fan of micro brainstorming, of using these little casual techniques like engaging in topics that are slightly off topic, but that the group finds fun. And you should know that there is scientific research to back you up. If if you were to Google the terms, quote, research on mind wandering and creativity, unquote, you will find there are dozens of papers written in serious scientific journals that show that people who allow their minds to wander generally come up with more creative solutions than those who don't. So, this is how our minds actually work. And we should not be embarrassed and ashamed that we let our minds drift off somewhere. Rather, we should celebrate this fact. This is who we are. This is how creativity works. And this is how we should work if we want to find that joy. And with that, I'd like to now introduce Vanita Verma. Vanita Verma is a senior product designer at Imprivata. Her career started way before that in India, where she studied to be an architect and worked in urban planning in a large city studying very complex problems with multiple constituencies. Today, Vanita works on product, I'm sorry, Vanita then emigrated to the United States, where she studied UX design at Bentley University and got her master's degree in the same. And today, Vanita works at Imprivata as a senior product designer working on very complex products. And with that, let me turn it over to Vanita.
Thank you, Matt. And also thank you for setting a great introduction to our talk today. So before I begin, I would like to start with a little story. When I was working with Matt, we both were working together at Imprivata, and we were working as partner UX designers. So essentially, we would be attending the same meetings with project managers, trying to understand the problem, trying to understand what feature we are trying to build. And we would also work with the engineering teams, the architects, in like brainstorming on those problems and how to come up with solutions for those. And then after attending these meetings together, we would often meet, both of us would meet separately on the site to work on like what are our design proposals for the same. But before we would get into that, we would often chit chat and let our minds wander. So Matt has a really interesting background that is in art, and I have a background in architecture and urban design. So Matt would sometimes tell me something really interesting, say about some artist. Say it was Mark Rothko. He would tell me something about the artist, and if I haven't heard about it, I would be really surprised. And then we would go on with this like yes and approach. He would tell me something, and I would relate it to something in architecture. And this way, we would go on talking and let our
Vanita, I think you pressed the mute button by mistake.
Oh, I'm
There you go.
sorry.
No worries.
Were you guys able to hear what I was saying?
Yes, we only lost you for a sentence or two.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'll just try to catch up. So I was saying that as Matt has an interesting background in art, and I have a background in architecture and urban design, so often he would tell me something interesting about an artist that I did not know about, and I would relate it to something in architecture because that was kind of my background. And we would often go on, kind of with this yes and approach and relate it to something else and something else. And we would go about like with this mind wandering exercise. And sometimes we would often talk about, like some kind of storytelling through movies or stories or literature, and sometimes philosophy. And that is what I want to talk about is philosophy and how that helps me personally get into a creative state. The next slide, please. So before I dive into it deep, I want to just briefly touch upon like what is philosophy. So philosophy is the study of asking very fundamental questions about existence, like why do we exist? Why do we have this life? What is knowledge all about? What are values? Like growing up, I'm sure we all have been raised in different backgrounds. We were told this is good, this is bad, this is the thing to do, that's not the thing to do. But have we really ever questioned it? Like, what are our values? What is reason? And what is all this like thinking about the mind? So, essentially, at its core, philosophy is about thinking deeply and critically, basically to better understand our own self, our human mind, and the world around us. The next slide, please. Um, yeah. So, and I would like to touch upon like why philosophy works for me. So I personally think that philosophy really encourages challenging our assumptions, right? So it helps you ask questions on like what are our values, like what is the human mind trying to do? What are we trying to do as people? So I feel that it really helps me ask better questions. And as a designer, especially like if you're working on a design problem, I think it personally helps me to evaluate the same problem, but from multiple perspectives. Like I was introduced the problem and given like, here is a scenario, this is the challenge of the user. But sometimes I try to take a step back and see it from different perspectives. Like, have I thought about the problem differently? So that's one. And the second one is I personally feel that philosophical reflection also nurtures empathy. And especially as product designers, we are also user researchers, we are observing our users, and we all use this buzzword of empathy. But I feel that, philosophy also helps me become more empathetic by trying to deepen my own capacity to understand others and also like improve my own design practice. So next slide, please. And going from here, I would like to touch upon the fact that, I'm sure that you, I, all of us, we work in like a corporate environment where our calendars are jam-packed. So we are moving from like half an hour this meeting, next meeting, next meeting. So you're working on a very technical back-end side, deep topic, and then you move into another topic where we are talking about delighting the users. But we are moving from this, running from one meeting to the other. And often what happens is like these tasks feel so mechanical to us that we feel like we are losing our sense of joy and creativity. It feels like something inside us has gone quiet. We are not showing up as our best selves, and we are not quite alive to, creating a better experience. And we are far from creating delightful experiences at times when we are so in this like a rushed environment. So today what I want to talk about is like pick the example of philosophy and talk about one philosopher in particular, and that is Marcel Proust, and what we can learn from him about this process of creative reawakening. Next slide, please. So a little bit background about who is Marcel Proust. So Marcel Proust is one of the very, very famous French philosophers. He wrote a lot of literature and books somewhere in the end of 1800s, early 1900s. And this is a picture of one of his very, very famous books. It's called In the Search of Lost Time. It has about 3,000 pages. It's and you can see all these volumes in the picture, but don't worry, I'm not going to talk all about that. I'll only give you a very quick glimpse and some learnings that we can take from him. Next slide, please. So Proust talks about something that he calls as like the Proustian moments. Uh, and I'll tell you a little story about like from this book, In the Search of Lost Time, and this idea of what is a Proustian moment. So Proust is telling the story about this author. He's writing a book and he belongs to a bourgeois household. That means like he's well educated, he's well fed, he lives in a comfortable home and has a beautiful family around him. And he's working on this book. And in this process, he's kind of like at some point of time lost all his hope, lost all his enthusiasm, and no new ideas are coming to him. And at this point of time, he's very dull and he's bored with life and doesn't want to do basically anything. And he's sitting at his desk. And at this time, his mother walks in and she comes with some tea and a cake, which is a very special, like a Madeleine cake. And as first he says, no, I'm not really interested. I don't want anything, no tea and cake. But then he decides to, indulge in it. So he takes a sip of this tea and bites into this Madeleine cake. So as he bites into this cake, what happens is suddenly the smell of this tea, the aroma, and the taste of this cake really brings back all the memories that he has in his childhood of his favorite aunt Leonie, where he used to go and visit her on in like the French countryside during his holidays. So he's suddenly reminded of this aunt who used to come and waking up on a Sunday morning with this kind of a similar tea and this cake. So it brought back all the memories that he had as a child of, that joy of meeting this aunt, her aunt coming into his room and bringing this cake. And he's reminded of the beautiful times he had, how excited he was as a kid to then walk towards like the beach, and he would pass across these beautiful trees and then go and play with the pebbles alongside the water. So what Proust calls this is like it's a Proustian moment, and these are these memories which we have in our own minds. They are somehow there in the involuntary memory, and it's not that like our creativity and such experiences have gone dead, but they are somehow lying dormant inside us. So with this one experience, he was able to bring it back, and suddenly it brought back all the enthusiasm he had for life. So what Proust says is that it's not productivity, not efficiency, but the appreciation, emotion, and the subtle sensory experiences that we have, which bring back our joy and eventually trigger back our creative energies. Next slide, please. So as Proust was able to bite into this cake and it brought back all these memories in like of his delightful experiences he had as a child, the author calls these like Proustian moments where you're able to tap into your own creative self. So maybe you have some similar experiences for yourself in your memory, which can bring back that creativity within you. Next slide, please. So Proust says that it's not life that's boring, but it's our lens that is dull. And he says that it's the habit, the day-to-day things that we are doing. It makes us numb to these small little beautiful things which are there in everyday life. And he says that as adults, we kind of like get dull from habit, but children don't suffer from the same thing. And that is why they take delight in like small puddles. They see a puddle, they want to jump into it, or they see a bed, they want to jump on it. And small little things as like freshly baked bread excites them. But as adults, we need stronger stimulants. We need like big awards, big recognitions, and only that helps us. But Proust says that the key here is breaking away from habit, and that is how it can lead us to, be the better creative selves that we are. So moving on to the next slide. So Proust says that there is one group of the human population that does this job really, really well of breaking away from habit, and those are artists. Next slide, please. So, as per the author Proust, he says that the trick in order to revive our creativity is to bring back the powers of appreciation that we had as a child back to in our adulthood, and to strip away from this habit that we have and look on daily life with a new lens and have a grateful sensitivity to it. So Proust says that great artists have the power to open our eyes just because of the way they perceive their surroundings in very unusual ways. And that is, if you look at the still life from Chardin, it is such a simple painting of, everyday objects, but just the way the artist pays attention to the light on the edge of the spoon or to the softness of this tablecloth. Or say if the artist was painting an old man, they pay attention to the pinkish tones on the old man's skin. So by paying attention to these little things, they also bring back our own attention to these elements. So going on to the next slide. So just a few key takeaways from Proust is that, why good art and literature is relevant to us is because the artists don't really create a recollection of, say, what spring looks like, but they're able to bring the elements that are memorable to that feeling of spring. And with these little details they capture, they bring back our own enthusiasm for springtime. And it's not that we all are devoid of such memories, but we tend to forget those details due to habit. And art and literature helps us provoke our appreciation of these things and not just as a recollection. The next slide, please. So I'd like to now wrap up and leave you all with some key learnings from Proust for us is that, Proust encourages us not to just look harder, but to look differently. And as UX designers, we can probably think about it as, can we slow down enough to really observe a user who's struggling? Or maybe can we can we shift our own memories and approach the problem differently? Or can we look at a little bit of metaphors that can help our users understand what they are doing and how they're supposed to do something? So my key takeaway for you all is find your own Proustian moments and what they could be. For me, it's philosophy. It works for me. And just as an example, what I do is, say I'm reading a book on day-to-day basis, I just keep it on my work desk and say that I'm in back-to-back meetings. I was in meetings from 9 to 2 and nonstop. And then after that, I had to work on my design task. And by then my creativity had gone dead. So I just picked up that book, flipped through a page or two, and suddenly I was refreshed. I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to work on my design problem. Now my mind is refreshed. So maybe this is what works for me. For you, it could be something else. It could be taking a small walk or watching a sunset, or maybe just staring at the sky, looking at the cloud patterns. So think about what is your Proustian moment and what could work for you. So along with this, I'm coming to an end to my section, and I would like to introduce the next speaker. That is Sasha. Sasha has a background in computer science and graphic design, and she's currently working at Imprivata as a product designer. She has designed products across e-commerce and now is working on the healthcare side at Imprivata. Originally, she's from Ukraine, and later she moved to the United States. She's passionate about mentoring new designers and continuously learning to create impactful user experiences. Over to you, Sasha.
Thank you, Vinita. Thank you for this introduction. So as Vinita mentioned earlier, we all like to chat with our coworkers informally from time to time. And during one of those friendly conversations with Matt, I mentioned ambiguity and all the struggles that it brings to me as a designer. In return, Matt shared his professional experience and told me that I'm not alone in this boat, and encouraged me to explore my thoughts on this topic. And this is how it all started. I planned to make a LinkedIn post about it, but here I am, lucky enough to share them with you right now. When I first started as a UX designer, I thought that my job would be to make things clear, visually, structurally, functionally. And I believed that good design comes from certainty, from clear requirements, from well-defined goals, and a linear processes. And honestly, That's how things looked at the time. Because in my previous roles, I had the luxury of working with business analysts who translated the chaos. So they distilled stakeholder feedback and shaped requirements. And they gave me structured problems to solve. There was always a document, a wireframe, a Jira ticket, something that felt like a clear starting point. So when I interviewed for my current role, and I was asked, "Are you comfortable working with a high level of ambiguity?" I said yes, because I really wanted the job and I agreed without hesitation. But the truth is, I had no idea what that really meant. And few months in, I learned quickly that there were vague goals, conflicting inputs, moving targets, and some days I wasn't even sure what problem we were solving. And I kept thinking to myself, how am I supposed to design anything when nothing is fully defined? And I thought I was failing, but it turned out I was just entering a real world of design. Can we go to the next slide, please? So back then, I saw ambiguity as a sign that something had gone wrong. I wanted to push through it and get to clarity as fast as possible and start designing. But what I've come to realize is that ambiguity isn't always a problem to solve. It's more like a space to work within. And not all ambiguity is the same. There's the kind that sparks creativity, like an open-ended question or a loosely framed opportunity. This kind of ambiguity invites curiosity and collaboration, and it makes room for unexpected insights. Then there's the kind that blocks momentum, like unclear ownership or lack of alignment or missing context. And I've learned to tell the difference, and I've learned that our role is as designers is to help turn both kinds into forward movement. Next slide, please. One of the most uncomfortable lessons that I had to learn, especially during the transition from junior to mid-level designer, is that it's okay to not know. In the beginning, I thought that I had to be the one with the answers. I felt pressure to show confidence in stakeholder meetings, to be decisive in workshops, and to present the solution. But when you're deep in a complex, shifting problem space, there are no perfect answers. Well, at least not right away. So I had to learn to say things like, "I'm not sure yet, but here's what I'm thinking," or "let's test this and see what we find." That kind of vulnerability felt terrifying at first, but over time, I saw how it built trust with my teammates, with engineers, with product managers, and it opened the door for more honest conversations and better outcomes. So I've come to see vulnerability as one of the most underrated skills in UX, especially when you are designing through ambiguity. Next slide, please. So as a junior designer, I feared making mistakes. I thought that one wrong decision would erode trust or break the process, so I overthought things. I held back ideas and I waited too long for the right moment. But ambiguity doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards momentum. Now I know that part of the job is making small bets, testing assumptions, trying things and adjusting. That doesn't mean being careless, of course, but it means being intentional, even in uncertainty. Next slide, please. But one of my favorite lessons that really landed for me as I stepped into more responsibility was this. We're not just designing for users, we're also designing understanding for our teams. As product designers, we often are at the intersection of business needs, technical constraints, and user goals. And the space between those things, that's where the ambiguity lives. And we are often the ones tasked with making it legible. That doesn't mean simplifying everything, but it means doing the hard work of mapping out what's known and unknown, asking better questions, of course, visualizing gaps, and translating feedback. So we kind of need to learn to prototype to learn and not just to show something. It means creating clarity and not just consuming it. Next slide, please. To sum up everything that I just said, I just want to say that ambiguity used to scare me. It made me feel like I was missing something, like I wasn't good enough, experienced enough, or fast enough. But with time, I've come to see it differently. Ambiguity, it's just part of the job. And more than that, it's part of what makes the job meaningful. It forces us to slow down, to listen deeper, and to involve others, and to think more critically. And it, of course, it creates space to grow. So if you are early in your design career and ambiguity feels overwhelming, know that you're not alone. You don't have to have it all figured out. Start where you are, ask questions, share your thinking, take the first step. Because the truth is, great design doesn't come from certainty. It comes from the courage to explore the unknown. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our next speaker, Michelle. Michelle is a UX professional with over 25 years of experience. She has solved user problems for healthcare solutions at companies such as Athena Health, IQVIA, and Privata. Since 2012, she has built and led UX teams focusing on hiring, mentoring, and fostering creative environments to help them shine.
Thank you, Sasha. Oftentimes, how we actually manage ambiguity can feel like a dirty little secret. And I appreciate your honest and eloquent take on that. Next slide, please. In March of 2020, I was only 6 months into my job as head of product design at Imprivata when the pandemic and subsequent lockdown hit. I was faced with not only figuring out how to build relationships for myself across the organization, but how to lift up and support the morale of my team. Next slide, please. It was a period of profound, that one right there, thanks. It was a period of profound trial and error where we had a large turnover on the product design team. There were many external factors that led to this, but it forced me to rethink about what was within my control in order to create an environment in which practitioners can thrive within this extreme context of ever-changing priorities and uncertainty, both inside and outside the bounds of building software. Next slide, please. As a UX leader, my job is to ensure that UX solutions at the appropriate level of quality and scope, of course, are delivered in a timely way with as little friction as possible. To do that, however, it's crucial to create a psychologically safe space that fosters that magical combination of independence and collaboration within a multidisciplinary team. Next slide, please. Broadly speaking, a safe space is one where people feel supported to talk about things and do things without fear of being penalized. This is important because an environment of mistrust ultimately reduces the wiggle room for creative problem solving. People simply become risk averse out of fear of making mistakes. Next slide. So, what are some ways we as leaders create a safe space in which UX practitioners can thrive? As an individual contributor, when you're in that solitary moment where it's just you and the pixels, what kinds of things around you can support your ability to let your mind wander? I'll share just a few highlights of things that worked for our team at the time. And while I'll be speaking about my experience as a UX leader, what I'm about to share can be suggested or tried even if you're an individual contributor. Leadership is not confined to titles or number of reports. Next slide, please. As I rebuilt the team, I made some very intentional choices about everything we did, from hiring and team makeup to daily UX practice and how we functioned as a discipline within product development. My first goal was to hire the right people by being thoughtful about balancing experiences, skill sets, and working styles. Our hiring process had clear documented steps with criteria, defined roles, sample questions, and the whole team was engaged at one point or another throughout the process. Next slide, please. Above all, we understood that having a foundation of curious, open people is the key to building a safe space for the whole team. This was observed by Allison Reynolds and David Lewis when they were studying high-performing teams through direct observation, and has proven to be true through our own experiences together. Next slide, please. Whether we are joining an existing team or building one, it's our responsibility as managers to get to know individuals and create opportunities to foster relationships within it. Everyone works differently, and every team needs different things. One simple place to start is with how you use your team meeting time. We collaborated on agenda items for both standing meetings and special offsite gatherings. If you, as the manager, is doing all the talking during these sessions, you're missing an important opportunity to engage your team and help them build those collaborative muscles. Next slide, please. Another way we fostered relationships was through a Design Buddies program. This was an intentional matching of people with complementary experiences across different products. And while I assigned the matches, it was up to each pair to decide how they wanted to work together, whether it was casual one-on-ones, collaborative working sessions, or mutual design feedback. Next slide, please. My last team example is about informal design sharing. This was in the form of a visual stand-up. Think of a typical Scrum team stand-up with a twist. Each week, half the team took turns doing a brief overview with just a few images of one thing they were working on. This provided cross-product visibility into projects and would often lead to larger philosophical discussions or smaller group work sessions. And as an added benefit, this reinforced that design and user research is a process, and being productive can be many things other than a completed wireframe spec. Next slide, please. These are just a few examples of team activities, and I'd like to share two lessons learned as a leader from my time at Imprivata. Next slide, please. Our fundamental challenge as managers is to help our teams strike balance between the reality of producing timely deliverables and having a reasonable amount of time in which to do that work. To do that, we must be clear about our expectations and know when to step in and when to step back. Next slide, please. At Imprivata, I was charged with developing a strategy for how we might go about harmonizing the look and feel for 9 different products built on different code bases. We focused on the 2 most visible areas for our users, the login pattern and the main navigation bar. We had an aggressive timeline, but because we had already explored new standards for patterns and incorporated new branding styles, we had a great foundation to work from. This timeline made some designers uncomfortable initially, but by breaking down the pieces and establishing small working committees with captains, we were able to successfully meet the challenge with solutions that were well received by our stakeholders. It would have been much harder if I hadn't stepped in with a prescriptive plan. Next slide, please. Communicating clear boundaries and expectations are vital to establishing trust with your team. No one likes surprises. Next slide, please. The second lesson relates to openness. Sasha talked about vulnerability, and it needs to go both ways. And we need to practice Proust's ideas around breaking habits to unlock creative thinking. I took a break from tech when the bubble burst in 2000 to get my MFA in painting. The first thing we had drilled into our heads was that we had to drop everything we thought we knew about the process of making art. We had to intentionally practice with curiosity. This is something I bring to my own UX practice today. None of us has all the answers, but the experiences we gain provide us with a growing toolbox of things to try to help us get to be where we need next. We must all model our own willingness to be vulnerable and to experiment, regardless of whether we are ICs or managers. Next slide, please. These are some experiments we tried so that our team would feel safe and supported within a reasonable set of boundaries. The reality is we're all working within constraints, but through experience, we develop better judgment for when to let our minds wander or when to just quickly make that wireframe that's needed for your product team to make progress. It's the job of our leaders to guide us in that journey. And that can be done by collaboratively building a psychologically safe space in which everyone can do their best work. Next slide, please. We have some key takeaways for you today. The first is make time to let your mind wander. You'll be surprised at what you think of, what you can come up with during those moments. Find small ways to activate joy within your busy day. For me, it's I have a container of Play-Doh, and it reminds me of being in kindergarten. And when I'm feeling a little low energy, I just open it up and give it a whiff, and I'm re-energized to do the next thing I have to do. Embrace ambiguity. It's an opportunity to help bring clarity to your team or arrive at different kinds of solutions. And lastly, experiment with ways to bring your team closer together. And remember, a curious mindset is your best tool for solving problems and building relationships. Next slide, please. Thank you for listening. We'd love to open it up to any questions, comments, or experiences you'd like to share around how we nourish our creative selves. But first, Michelle has some important announcements for us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all our speakers today. This was a really thoughtful and engaging conversation, and I'm sure you gave us a lot of ideas of how to implement it in our personal life as well as our work and our career. And before we move into the Q&A, I just wanted to quickly highlight a few ways that you can get more involved with UXPA if you wanted to. So the first one I touched on was the UXPA conference in Las Vegas. This is coming up in 2 months, and it's really shaping up to have an amazing program with lots of speakers and posters and panels that we're going to be having there. So if you enjoy the session that we have today, I think it's a great opportunity for you to try to attend that one, connect with other UXers in the community. And I'll put the link for the program in the chat so you guys can take a look at all the different sessions that we have planned for you guys. Another thing is we're always looking for people who would like to contribute to our mission as well. So if you thought about maybe leading a webinar just like the one that we have here today, or maybe you wanted to teach a short course, we would love to hear from you. So I'll provide a link where you can basically provide your information, your idea of what you wanted to talk about, and we would love to connect with you and try to schedule a time to do that as well. And finally, I know some people are very creative, and we have opportunities also to contribute to our magazine and our journal. So if you guys are enjoying writing or have a perspective or an experience that you would like to share with us, that is another way to get involved as well. So with that in mind, we'll turn it over into the Q&A section that we have. So let me take a look if we have any questions so far. Feel free to put them in the Q&A section, or if you prefer as well to just ask in person, you guys can raise your hand and I'll unmute you so you can ask the question. And even if it's just a comment or an observation or maybe an idea that passed through your mind as you were listening to the different speakers that we have today, we would love to hear about that. So feel free to raise your hand or to put that comment in the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm wondering what little moments of joy that everyone here taps into in order to help them when they're feeling low
Mhm.
energy.
For me, Michelle, it was I used to have a copy of Edward Tufte's book called Envisioning Information, which I had at one point read, from cover to cover. But I would just flip from page to page like a coffee table book and just look at all the amazing visual representations. And that would bring me a little bit of joy just by the inspiration from all that work and help me develop, as Benita described, my Proustian moment and come back a little more refreshed towards whatever I was doing.
For me, I would say it's actually limiting my social media, and I keep experimenting with the ways I can do this. So recently, I bought a physical device that is called the brick, and you have to block your social media, put this small brick somewhere that you cannot find it, and all of your social media is blocked from that moment. And um, this is how I actually get back to my creative side, just limiting the information I can consume. Sometimes it works. Yeah.
That's a great point. And if I can add quickly, there was this one time when I was living very close to a beach. And then when I was working from home. So again, there was no place to go and talk to people and refresh myself. After I was in like back-to-back meetings, and I was attending lots of Zoom meetings that time, a lot of brainstorming sessions going on, and you're so exhausted once you are back-to-back meetings. And I would just stare out the window, and it is interesting, like when you live closer to a beach, there are so many interesting cloud patterns in the sky, and I would just get lost for like 5-10 minutes staring at it. So, I mean, these little things can also bring us joy and kind of like help us revive. I'm like, okay, now I can get back to thinking about something innovative or something new. So, just one more experience of how we can find our own things.
Um, Michaela, I'm hearing from a friend of mine who texted me privately that chat is disabled. Are we sure it's working?
The chat is disabled. The Q&A is the one where we have the questions. And in fact, I can see that um, we have two questions in there, or actually one. So I'm
Oh, I guess
wondering if you guys
maybe
wanted to address that one. Yeah. Mhm.
maybe if you could read them. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I was looking at
Oh,
chat.
you're looking at the chat. Yeah, no problem. I'll read them out loud.
Okay.
So we have Janelle who is asking, how do you position this critical white space as productivity when you may need to justify it to non-creative people so they don't think as it of wasting time?
I love this question. And hi, Janelle. Thank you so much for being here. Janelle and I go way back, way back to our pre-professional lives. This is something that we have to be careful about, I think, because there's already a misconception about what we do and how we work. And a lot of times it has to do with magic or or it the other side of it is there is no process, there is no thinking, there is no deep dive or inquiry. We're just about the artifacts that we produce. So the way I look at everything we're talking about today is it's not necessarily something I would say to my CPO, hey, we need to time to let our minds wander. To be honest and real, it's more like how do we take charge of our own nourishment? How do we make space for our own nourishment? And then as leaders, how do we create that space, um, but in a way that ultimately is not going to we're not going to ask. We need 20 minutes of mind wandering every day, right? Because we know that doesn't work. Um, I don't know if that answers your question. I guess I see it as like it's an internal process. It's something that you can implicitly create space for in how you structure your team time, how you model being very tactical versus taking a break from something that you're stuck at, because it's definitely not something that is easily describable to stakeholders or executives.
Michelle, I would
That's
add to that.
exactly right, Janelle. It's not about asking for permission. So we're not asking for this space. We're figuring out how do we build it into our daily practice.
Um, Michelle, I was going to add to that there are simple ways to do it. When a meeting is starting, usually there's a few minutes when not everybody's there and things are getting sort of shuffled around. And you can just bring up something that's of interest to you, like maybe something you read in today's paper or a book you are reading, or "Oh, I'm reading this wonderful book and it got me this idea about X." And then others will start talking about it too. And eventually the meeting will come together and come to bear on whatever the problem is you're trying to solve in that meeting. But by introducing these casual conversations, that can sort of spark this thing. And then for those people who need that more concrete evidence, find some of those papers that I talked about, circulate them amongst your group. There is some real deep scientific research about this, and start getting curious about the creative process and what makes it work. Because no matter what company you work for, being creative is one of the most important things that everybody can do. It's not just for designers, it's for technology people, it's for bookkeepers, or you name
That's
it.
right.
We all need to be creative.
Yeah. And I think one question that came to my mind when you guys were speaking, just because of the era that we're going through right now, is how can the practice of really letting the mind wander help different UX professionals who are navigating job loss or career transition reconnect with their creativity or sense of direction? Maybe you guys have any thoughts to share about that.
I can share that because I am looking for a job,
Mhm.
and I have been for a while. It's a very tough market, and I think the only way we have to practice with intentionality. I have to say to myself, I know it's really crappy, and I know like going into LinkedIn to see job postings and apply it once again, and not to be um, not sure of how it's all going to turn out and all of that. Um, it's really important to connect with other professionals. And so there's sort of my own daily, what am I doing every day to keep my spirits up and to nourish my creativity. Some of that is learning, reading about things, going deep into what is AI, for example. Or I'm trying some vibe coding right now with this app idea. And then the third thing is really reconnecting. Like Matt and Benita and Sasha are amazing, and I have other former colleagues that I've been connecting with, and it really does help every day.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I know a lot of people are going through that, so it's really
Yeah,
important to utilize
you're
some of
not
this
alone.
connection. Yeah, exactly. So I know we're almost out of time. We have just Roland with one final question in case you guys have any other books or podcasts or blogs or website, etc., that you may go to wonder if you aren't able to go outside or stuck in a place like a train or an airplane.
Sasha or Vanita, you haven't had a chance to respond. You want to say something?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is the book that you, Matt, mentioned like 5 minutes ago, Envisioning Information. It's actually my the book I keep at my desk, and I have it really close to me, so just distract. And I think that the best thing is to change the way, change the activity that that you're doing. For example, if you're sitting, like, just distract yourself. Do not go from one screen to another screen. Well, if it's possible, just maybe do not underestimate the physical side of it. That's what I would recommend. Yeah.
And
Anita?
I can add to that to address Roland's question. So I would say that in the standard way, I would say that, read Medium articles or Harvard Business Review, some good articles. But I would really say, as we are on this topic of like reviving our creative selves, it totally depends on what you're passionate about. What works for you might not work for me. What works for me might not work for you. So I think for me, it's always, I try to go totally off topic, and that really really helps me, like what I was talking about earlier, like talking about a great movie because of its storytelling style or something. And then when I try to connect those dots is what helps me be better at what I do, rather than go to the standard like books and podcasts. I do those as well. I mean, I think that's part of the process, but like this tapping into our creative selves might be totally something that's unique to you. It could be like you asked the question, a blog or a podcast. For me, I follow this one. It's called brainpickings.org. Completely out of the box, talks about literature, poetry, something. Um, but it's short and quick. I can read it in 5 minutes. So I would say like finding those little things which work for you. So yeah, that's about it.
I'll add one more quick one. There's a wonderful book called Where Good Ideas Come From, written by Stephen Johnson. Where Good Ideas Come From by Stephen Johnson. And it's literally what the title is. He's studied in a psychological way all the different ways great innovations happen and where they got the ideas. And there are a lot of organizing themes about how to stimulate the creative process to make it work better. So highly recommend that book as well.
Wonderful. This has been an amazing discussion and very timely. So I want to thank again to Matt, Michelle, Sasha, and Vanita for taking the time to share their learning with us. They also created a PDF file for us with the key learnings that I've attached in the chat. So you guys are more than welcome to download it. And again, we will see you again in May for our next monthly webinar. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.